Hi, welcome back to Layden's Hollow. Today I thought I'd take you guys along and show you how I do our sourdough starter. It's not much of a recipe, it's not complicated. I've seen many people do this online and they're like, oh, you gotta have this much flour, it's gotta be this much water, it's gotta be this much of that, this much of that. No, none of that is, you don't need to go through measurements or anything like that. This is just sourdough starter. Very simple, very easy. Take some flour. Now we use unbleached flour. This is a 500 milliliter bottle, mason jar that I use. You can use any jar you like. Doesn't matter what size. I put this in, this much, in this bottle. The only reason I'm putting this much in is because I have my sourdough starter that I use all the time. It's already done. I'm just doing this to show you guys how I do mine. Now I'm on well water, so I can use my tap water to do this, but if you live in town, you're going to have chlorine, fluoride, and all those other chemicals in your water, which you should never drink in town water. Sorry. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I said it anyway. So I use warm water. See, this is a little bit too thick. I'll get up there real close so you guys can see it. See that? That's too thick. It's coming out in a giant blob. So I had a little bit more water. Yeah, that looks pretty good. It's a little bit thicker than pancake mix. Now it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be this thickness. It can be a little bit thinner, even a little bit thicker will still work, but I find this is what works the best. A little bit thicker than pancake mix. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's sourdough starter in a nutshell. That's it. That's all it is. It's the simplest thing in the world. Now, a lot of people, and they go, well, I'll just get to that point. I'll talk about that a little bit. Now, after you have it done, people are like, oh my God, yeah, you gotta, it could take a week, could take 2 days, could take 3 days. Don't panic if it doesn't work right away. It takes a little bit of time. Try to keep it in a warm place. Not cool and not hot, but just warm. It should work within 2 days. It should be starting to bubble up and starting to work. Especially if you use an unbleached flour. And I can't stress this enough. If you live in a town, don't use your tap water. Buy bottled water if you have to. But yeah, I'll get back to what I was saying before about people and they're trying to tell you that, oh my God, once it starts, you have to take half of it out and head half and mix it in, add some more water. You have to do that every other day, blah, 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 go on and on and on. People just make sourdough starter complicated. It's not complicated. You know what we do? We have our sourdough. We've been using the same bottle now for probably over a year. Now it's different starter, obviously, but because we do add to it, but we don't do it the way most people do it. When my wife makes sourdough bread, she will use probably 3/4 of this for her sourdough bread. And there's about this much quarter left in the bottom of the bottle. We put that in the fridge. That's the extent of what we do to save our sourdough starter. We don't feed it. We don't do any of this stuff until we're ready to use it again. Now, we're usually ready to use it again in a week. No more than 7 days in the fridge like that. So what we normally do is we'll take it out of the fridge the night before. We'll add some flour, add some water, get it back to the same consistency that I showed you before. Leave it out overnight. You get up in the morning and your sourdough will be ready to use. This one I took out this morning. It was in the fridge for, I think, this time it was a little longer than what we normally do, but I think it was in there for like 8 or 9 days. A little bit too long in my opinion, but I added some flour to it and some water, and it's 3/4 full, and you can see all the bubbles. You can actually see where it's actually working right now. So yeah, the biggest problem is when you start moving it around, the gas tends to escape a lot quicker, because the gas is what actually causes the sourdough to rise and it gets trapped inside the flour by the protein that's in the flour, and it can't escape quite so easily, and that's what forces the dough or the flour to rise. And well, that's the basics of floured or sourdough starter. This is the simplest thing in the world. I never did understand why people found it so difficult. I think what it was is people were trying to follow all of these things that I've watched online, and I just shake my head. You guys are making it way more complicated than what it needs to be. Sourdough starter is the easiest thing in the world to make. All you need is flour and water and a bottle to put it in, or whatever you want to put it in, doesn't matter. So yeah, very simple recipe. The easiest way to make sourdough starter. There is another way you can do sourdough starter, is what they used to do back, a long time ago. Is they would use up their sourdough starter, and then they would take about a quarter of what they had left, and they would roll it up into flour and make it really dry into a round ball, and then they'd just put it in their flour, and it'll be fine till when you're ready to use it again. The reason you can do that is because it needs moisture in order to expand. So if there's no moisture left, the bacteria and that kind of goes dormant, and as soon as you take it out, add it to a container again, add some water, and it will work again. So that's how they used to do it when they didn't have refrigerators and stuff like that. But this works really well for us. We just throw it in the fridge, good for a while. But now when you first start, don't put it in the fridge. It actually needs to start. Okay, so you're going to have to leave it out until your bottle, or whatever it is you're using, that you see that it's expanded by at least twice to maybe 3 times of what you had in there. And then you should be able to use it and leave about a quarter of it left. Then you can put that in the fridge and leave it for a few days until you're ready to use it again, and off you go. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe consider subscribing. Leave a message and let me know what you thought of this video. Thanks for watching again, and stay safe, stay healthy, and don't eat too much bread.